The Zirak Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds. No species had ever resisted them successfully. When they set their eyes on Earth, they expected another easy victory. Admiral Tylan stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Imperator's Wrath, watching as his fleet approached the Sol system. He tapped his claws on the control panel, studying the sensor readings. No planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms, no war fleets. It was almost insulting. The humans are either fools or incredibly naive, one of his officers sneered. A species with space travel, but no real defenses. They must believe diplomacy will protect them. Tylan smirked. Then we will educate them. Prepare a display of force. The fleet moved closer, their ships dwarfing the few human vessels drifting near the edge of the system. The Zirak officers laughed when they saw them. The ships were large, bulky, and slow. Cargo haulers, not warships. The humans hadn't even bothered to send a military response. Scan them, Tylan ordered. I want to know what we're dealing with. The scanners returned with minimal readings. The ships had no visible weapons, no reinforced armor, no energy shielding. They were exactly what they appeared to be, harmless transports. This is ridiculous, growled Captain Rylos, Tylan's second in command. They don't even have a fleet worth destroying. Tylan raised a hand. No assumptions. We hail them first. If they surrender peacefully, we take the planet with minimal effort. If they resist, well, it won't take much to burn their world. A communication link was established. The screen flickered, and a human appeared. A calm-faced man in a dark uniform. His expression was unreadable. This is Admiral Tylan of the Zirak Dominion, Tylan announced. Your planet is now under the control of the Dominion. Surrender immediately, and we will spare your people unnecessary suffering. There was silence for a moment. Then, the human admiral smiled. Surrender, he said. That's an interesting choice of words. Tylan narrowed his eyes. Something about the human's tone felt wrong. Too calm, too confident. Then suddenly, alarms blared across the Zirak warships. Power fluctuations, weapons going offline, shields failing. The fleet was in chaos. What's happening? Tylan barked. The human admiral's smile widened. You wanted to see our defenses, he said. Well, you're about to. Tylan's claws dug into the armrest of his command chair as red warning lights flashed across the bridge. Officers scrambled to make sense of the sudden chaos. Status report. Tylan barked. Our systems are failing. An officer stammered. Shields are down. Weapons are unresponsive. Our targeting systems gone. Tylan turned his glare toward the view screen. The human admiral still sat there, perfectly calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. What did you do? Tylan growled. The human tilted his head slightly. You assumed we had no defenses, he said. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake, entering our system. Tylan forced himself to remain composed. You're bluffing, he spat. Your ships are nothing but cargo haulers. We scanned them ourselves. The human chuckled. Yes, that's what your scanners told you, isn't it? A cold feeling crept up Tylan's spine. Something wasn't right. Their fleet had been fully operational just moments ago. There had been no warning, no visible attack, yet their systems were collapsing. Then one of the officers gasped. Admiral, look. On the main screen, one of the cargo ships had moved. Slowly, almost lazily, it adjusted its position. But something about the movement sent a shiver through Tylan's core. Then, without warning, one of their own warships exploded. Tylan's breath caught in his throat. What was that? It came from the human ship. An officer stammered. But we detected no weapons fire. Tylan turned to the human admiral, who was watching him with an almost amused expression. You scanned our ships, the human said. But your scanners rely on known technologies. You searched for energy weapons, projectile launchers, missile bays. You never even considered that we might be using something else. Xylan's mind raced. Something else. What did that mean? Then, another Zirek warship exploded. Then another. Each time, there was no visible attack, just sudden, devastating destruction, as if the ships were being torn apart from the inside. Xylan's blood ran cold. "Impossible," he whispered. The human admiral leaned forward slightly. "Still think we're defenseless?" he asked. Xylan's mind was in turmoil. He had fought in countless battles, led invasions against war-hardened species, and crushed planetary defenses that seemed impenetrable, but this was something he had never encountered before. His warships, the pride of the Zirek Dominion, were being destroyed without a single visible shot fired. The so-called cargo ships remained eerily still, drifting in space like harmless vessels, yet they were the cause of the chaos. The bridge crew frantically worked, trying to regain control, but the systems refused to respond. Communications flickered, energy readings fluctuated wildly, and ship after ship detonated as if something inside them had turned against them. Xylan clenched his jaw, his mind racing for answers. How were the humans doing this? Was it some kind of electronic warfare? A virus in their systems? That shouldn't have been possible, not with Zirek military-grade encryption. Then the realization hit him like a thunderbolt. It wasn't the ships that were attacking. It was something hidden. The human ships had no visible weapons, no energy signatures, yet they were far too confident. Xylan knew the face of a commander who held all the cards, and the human admiral had that look. The Zirek had overlooked something their scanners had failed to detect, something that was now ripping their fleet apart from the inside. His claws tightened on the armrest as the answer slowly surfaced in his mind. Stealth technology. But not just any stealth, the kind that bypassed every known detection system. The Zirek Dominion had always believed true invisibility was impossible, that every cloaking system left some trace. Yet somehow, the humans had done it. They had turned their warships into ghosts, hidden in plain sight. Their real fleet wasn't visible, not to scanners, not to the eye. They had never been defenseless. They had simply let the Zirek believe they were. A chill ran down Xylan's spine as he realized the terrifying truth. The humans had let them come, let them walk into a trap. And now, it was already too late. Xylan's breathing was ragged as he watched the destruction unfold. His warships, once symbols of Zirek dominance, were falling like fragile toys. The sheer impossibility of it all sent waves of panic through his mind. How could they be losing without ever being fired upon? The so-called cargo ships hadn't moved, hadn't even powered up any known weapon systems, yet they were cutting through the Zirek fleet as if they had already won before the battle even began. Xylan slammed his fist against his console, his claws scraping against the metal surface. "Find them," he roared at his officers. "Find whatever is attacking us." But the officers looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. They were the best tacticians in the Dominion, trained to analyze battle strategies in real time, yet they had no answers. "Admiral, we don't know where the attacks are coming from," one of them stammered. "Our sensors show nothing. No energy signatures, no projectile trajectories. It's like the ships are just coming apart on their own." Xylan's stomach twisted. That was impossible. No ship could just fail like this. This wasn't sabotage from within. This wasn't some freak accident. This was by design. And the humans, those weak, defenseless beings, had played them like fools. The realization made his blood run cold. The Zirek had always relied on superior technology, brute force, and intimidation. No enemy had ever stood against them because they always saw the attack coming. But what if the attack was something they could never see? Xylan's mind raced through the possibilities. Infiltrators, nano-weapons, some kind of reality-bending technology. His claws twitched as he considered the most terrifying possibility yet. What if the humans had evolved war strategies beyond anything the galaxy had ever known? His fleet, the pride of the Dominion, was crumbling, and he still didn't even know how. The human admiral, still calm on the view screen, finally leaned forward and spoke. "Now you understand," he said softly. "Your war doctrine is built on what you can see, what you can measure. But warfare has evolved, Admiral Xylan." He smiled. "Welcome to the next era of war." Xylan's mind was drowning in chaos. He had faced overwhelming odds before, survived planetary sieges, and led invasions against war-hardened species. But this was beyond comprehension. His fleet, the most powerful armada the Xirac Dominion had ever assembled, was dying without even understanding why. The enemy hadn't fired a single visible shot. No laser beams, no plasma torpedoes, no railgun projectiles, and yet ship after ship was crumbling into ruins. He forced himself to focus on the reports streaming in. Every alert on the command console screamed of critical system failures. Shields were failing, but not from direct hits. Power cores were overloading, but not from enemy bombardment. Hulls were collapsing, but there was no physical impact. Xylan's claws tightened against his seat. How could this be happening? How could an enemy destroy without attacking? A voice crackled through the bridge, one of his captains from the battleship. "Orda. Admiral, we've detected movement. Small distortions in space around the human fleet." The urgency in the captain's voice sent a shiver down Xylan's spine. "It's like something is there, but we can't see it. Sensors don't register anything solid, but the moment these distortions appear, our ships start failing." Xylan gritted his teeth. Stealth technology. The humans had somehow developed a level of cloaking so advanced it bypassed every known detection system. No energy readings, no heat signatures, no gravimetric distortions. Their ships were there, but they weren't there. A new thought struck him, one that sent a fresh wave of horror through his mind. If these invisible ships could move through their fleet undetected, then what else could they do? His mind spun through the possibilities. They could have already boarded his ships without anyone realizing it. They could be inside his command vessel, right now. The idea of an unseen enemy lurking within his own warship sent a deep primal fear through him. Then, something even more terrifying happened. The Xorvath, one of his largest and most advanced battleships, simply vanished. One moment it was there on the main display, moving into a defensive position. The next, gone. No explosion, no debris, no distress signal, just emptiness. The bridge crew stared in shock, their screens scrambling to process what had just happened. "Where is it?" Xylan barked. "Admiral, there's no trace of the Xorvath. No energy reading, no wreckage. It's as if it was never there." Xylan's pulse thundered in his ears. He turned back toward the view screen, where the human admiral still watched, his expression calm, almost amused. "What have you done?" Xylan snarled. The human admiral tilted his head. "You're asking the wrong question, Admiral," he said, his voice measured, almost casual. "You should be asking, how many more are already gone?" Xylan's blood ran cold. He turned back to his fleet, eyes wide in horror. More ships were disappearing, one by one, without a sound, without a trace. The Xirac Dominion was no longer in control of this battle. The humans weren't just winning. They had already won. Xylan's breathing was ragged. His claws dug deep into the metal of his command chair, his mind screaming for answers. His unstoppable fleet was being erased from existence, and he still didn't know how. The humans weren't using conventional weapons. There were no explosions, no impact craters, no waves of destruction. The Xirac Dominion's warships were simply vanishing, wiped from reality like ink dissolving in water. Xylan had fought countless species. He had seen biological horrors, AI-driven war machines, and weapons that shattered moons. But this was something else. A deep voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. "Admiral Xylan, you still don't understand, you. The human admiral's face was still on the main screen, his expression disturbingly calm. He sat in the command seat of his own vessel, hands folded in front of him, as if he were watching a chess game unfold. Xylan snarled, his voice laced with barely contained fury. "Tell me, human, what have you done? What trick is this?" The human chuckled softly, shaking his head. "There's no trick, Admiral. You're simply experiencing the consequences of underestimating us." Xylan's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Enough riddles. What is destroying my fleet? What is making my warships disappear?" The human admiral leaned forward. "You assumed our ships were defenseless. That was your first mistake." Xylan's muscles tensed. The human continued. "You saw what looked like harmless cargo ships, slow and unarmed, and you laughed. But that was never their true purpose. You saw what we wanted you to see." The realization hit Xylan like a plasma burst to the chest. Their intelligence reports had never detected large-scale weapons on human vessels. No massive energy signatures. No doomsday cannons. They had assumed humans simply didn't possess advanced warships. They assumed wrong. "What are these ships?" Xylan forced out. The human's eyes gleamed with something cold and merciless. "They are ghost ships, Admiral." Xylan's claws trembled. The human continued. "We don't fight like you. We don't need massive battleships or brute force. We don't announce our weapons. We let you get comfortable. We let you laugh at us. We let you think you've already won." The bridge lights flickered. A warning siren blared. Another ship vanished from the fleet. Xylan watched in horror as his command screen blinked. One after another, his warships were being erased from existence. The human's voice was cold now. "And then, when the time is right, we erase you." Xylan's entire body locked up. This wasn't war. This was execution. Xylan's mind was numb with terror. His once mighty fleet was gone. Not destroyed, not defeated, but erased as if it had never existed. The bridge of his warship was in chaos. Officers scrambled for answers, but there were none. His crew shouted, their voices filled with panic. Screens flickered with error messages, and the human admiral was still there, watching, waiting. Xylan's throat was dried as he forced out the words. "What? What have you done?" The human tilted his head. "We warned you." Xylan's claws dug into the metal armrests of his chair. "You call this war?" His voice shook with rage. "You didn't even fight. You just erased us." The human sighed. "You don't understand, Admiral. This was never a battle." Xylan's mandibles clicked in frustration. Then what was it? The human leaned forward, his expression dark. "A lesson." Silence filled the bridge. Xylan's crew looked at him, their eyes pleading for guidance, but he had none to give. The human continued. "You saw no defenses and assumed we were weak. You saw cargo ships and assumed they were harmless. You never once considered that we might fight in a way you don't understand." Xylan clenched his fists. "Then tell me, how did you do this?" The human admiral's eyes gleamed. "That's the beauty of it, Admiral. You'll never know." The transmission cut off. Xylan's blood ran cold. A moment later, the lights flickered. Warning sirens blared. His officers screamed as their bodies began to fade, dissolving into nothingness. Xylan gasped, his limbs growing weak as his own body started to vanish. And in his final moments, just before darkness swallowed him whole, he realized the horrifying truth. Earth never needed defenses, because no enemy would ever live long enough to attack them twice.